If you have a 95 to 96 S10 Blazer 4-wheel drive, you probably found that this thing, a lot of them have anti-lock brake systems on them. If you're dealing with this anti-lock brake problem that most of them have, it's probably due to the front sensors. It has 3 sensors. One's in the transmission, which is actually also the speed sensor that makes the speedometer work. Usually that one stays working. It seems to be pretty solid. The front 2, or the one on the right and left, they're like magnets, and they collect every piece of brake dust and metal and everything else, and then they get so packed up you can't read the stators on the hub. The hub's got like a cog, runs around on the inside, and the sensor picks up the brakes in it and sends signals to the anti-lock braking system's computer, and that way, if that wheel stops when you got the brake on, it'll release the brake pressure on the hose to that one wheel and keep it from locking up. The 95 to 96 anti-lock braking system on any S10 is the biggest piece of crap there ever was, the most dangerous there ever was. Matter of fact, with this one here, I was changing out the hubs, and I cleaned off the sensors. They were just, one of them was caked so bad you couldn't even tell it was a sensor, but I got them all cleaned up, put it on. Unfortunately, the hub design for these replacement hubs, the stator, or I think they call it reluctor, whatever, it had, when you're looking at the cogs, they were like smooth waves, whereas the ones that pulled off were like cuts. So it was more abrupt and deeper cuts, so it definitely could have picked up the signal better. So took it for a test drive and ended up going through an intersection because the thing wouldn't stop. Had the brake pedal all the way to the floor, and that anti-lock braking system was not going to let the vehicle stop. That's why it's the most dangerous system, in my opinion. Delete it. Get rid of that brake. Get rid of that anti-lock braking system and just go manual brakes, or go research and buy an aftermarket anti-lock braking system. I would not stick with that. However, if you're on a budget and you're trying to get your vehicle fixed, and you've either got, and more another thing, it's just another thing. More than likely, your anti-lock brake light is always on, and it probably goes off when you hit the brake. This is really common with these vehicles. If you're driving down the road, you put it on, put the brake on, and it starts stopping, then the anti-lock brake light goes off. Really goofy. It's like I said, it's a messed up system. I've tried to talk to it with a computer, and it's so messed up. Several systems I've hooked to it will not talk to it, so it's pretty much trashed. But outside the light, if you end up having where you hear that anti-lock brake motor running or whatever, and not for no reasons, more than likely you have a sensor, because that's what this was doing. You hit the brake and you hear that anti-lock braking system motor make that rrrr. It's a real loud noise, scares the crap out of you. You don't know what's going on. But if you're not really actually doing anything to cause this thing to work, in other words, you're not cramming the brakes on, you're just trying to stop normally and it's going off, it's very possible you have a bad sensor. Changing these sensors, unfortunately, is a job on these, because you have to remove the hub to change the whole sensor. The sensor is made onto the backing plate for the rotor, which is held on by the hub. So you've got to take the brake loose, the rotor off, you got to take the big nut loose on the hub, on the CV shaft, you've got to take the upper ball joint loose from the control arm, pull it out, take the 3 bolts off from the hub, and remove the hub. You'll see in this video, but this is the most aggravating system. It's aggravating to change, and just all around stupid. So let's get into the video. First, jack it up and then put it on securely on some jack stands. Shake your vehicle, make sure it's not going to fall off or anything. Double check it before you start climbing underneath it or getting underneath anything that could fall on you. You're going to have to take off this big nut right here. It's a 36 millimeter, and if you don't have an impact gun, then what I would highly recommend is, if you have somebody that can hold the brakes, you might be able to break it free, or you could put a bar, wedge one in the lug and the studs there against the ground and break it free. But I would recommend just leaving, before you lift it up, take the center cap out of the wheel and run through the wheel and with it sitting on the ground with the emergency brake on and the wheels chalk, break the nut loose free and then just unratchet it. To get this to release, you can just kind of pull it towards the rotor. What you're doing is you're compressing the piston in, and that lets the pads just slide right off. And I'm just going to go ahead and take the pads off because they're going to flop around. You can either you can buy the hooks to hold these. I don't even think I have one because I found that the hooks never can find a place to hook it to. It's out of the way, so with wire I can kind of generally just find me something to tie onto and then hang it where I want to. I don't think you need to actually see this. I'm just going to take that cotter pin out, and that's right there is a 3/4, and unscrew it. In order to get this hub off, the bolts are on the back side. So in order to get it off, we're going to take the upper ball joint loose. I'm going to show you how you just bang on the side and pop it loose. They do make a ball joint separator tool, but the bad thing about that is it can always get into the rubber boot and tear it. So I never use them if I don't have to. I mean, there's been times I've had to, but so we'll take that loose. We'll let the spindle pop out. Give it some maneuverability and we can get to all 3 bolts and remove this hub bearing. Okay, the CV shaft needs to be driven out of it. Either use a brass hammer, put you a block of wood in between this, or put the nut back on it. Do not beat on this shaft unless you're just going to plan on throwing it away. Unless you're replacing the shaft too. Do not beat on the shaft with a regular metal hammer. It should just release. These take an 18mm socket, so if you're going to do the ratcheting thing, you're going to have fun. It's not that bad really. I'm going to go ahead and use my impact gun on it. If you do have an impact gun, you want to get you a universal swivel for impacts. It makes life a lot easier. A regular universal joint, the chrome plated ones that look like a universal joint in a car, they don't work too well for impacting. And this is your new sensor. It's made onto the backing plate and it's riveted, and there may be somebody that sells one where you can take it the old one off, the new one on, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would stick with this because it's already been aligned to fit the stator on the hub. But so in order to get a sensor, you got to get a new backing plate too. When you go put this back on, ensure that you've got this part where the caliper goes. I left the bolt sticking through so it helped line the thing up. And I have noticed these plates are not exactly in place. It's better let it uncrimp this bracket, get it in place, and then you can bend it back. There's no sense in them doing it the way they did. The reason why I'm putting this on now is it's a lot easier to get a socket in up underneath that to tighten that. You'll have to take the restraints off the old wire and put on the new ones to reroute your wire. Be sure to run it behind your brake hose, or just pay attention how it came apart. I've already done the other side, and these new backing plates are not exact. You'll have to bend it around in order to get it to fit correctly, or it rubs. You go down the road with it rubbing, sounding horrible. Be sure to put you a lug nut or two on the rotor to kind of hold it in place until you can get your pads and stuff back on. Now, to ensure that this thing is not rubbing, which it is, you can hear it. Let's go ahead and put 2 studs on it. 2's all it really takes. I mean, you have to torque it really hard, just you hear it rubbing. So I hear it hitting. There. It's not rubbing, but you're going to have to really bend it, because just bending it with your hands sometimes won't do the trick. I'll just kind of stretch a little bit. Now I'm going to tighten down the caliper bolts. Finish tightening the upper ball joint, put the cotter key back in it, and then we got to finish running the wire up through here. The way it was behind that. So when you take these things apart, kind of make notice of where position they were in beforehand. Unfortunately, I cannot get a ratchet and a socket on it. Maybe a 1/4 inch drive, but by the time I go get one of those, I'll probably have it round up here with this wrench. I'm going to tie strap it to the brake hose. That's what I did to the other side. It makes more sense. They have it They had it hanging down just like that. To me, it looks like it might get caught in the tie rods. I would go ahead and plug your wire up. And there's a hole in the frame, and this little barb sticks in it and keeps it in place. Kind of hard to see, just kind of feel for it. And all we gotta do is just put a tie strap here. I'd recommend one, and then you're done. So you see what kind of a pain in the butt it is to change these sensors out. But it is what it is, and like I said, if you're on a budget, I'll put a link down in the description where you can buy them in a set. I would not replace just one side. I mean, it would really be a mistake. Mostly because with sensors and stuff like on ABS, you need to kind of keep a match. It's like you wouldn't change brake pads on one side and not the other. I mean, people do, and it's possible, but I wouldn't. So anyhow, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. And always check back because I'm always working on something crazy. See you in the next one.